Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today I am building something shark related. As of me recording and releasing this video, it is officially Shark Week. The Discovery Channel in the late 80s started Shark Week on their broadcasting channel, and it was like a dedication to all things shark, so all the programming and stuff was related in some way. There have been various hosts over the years, and I've always kind of been intrigued about this showcasing. So as I was looking for build ideas in a simple Google search, when you search shark weapon, one of the first things that pops up is Polynesian shark tooth, like axe, hammer, blade things. It's a very cool looking weapon. I'm not going to try and pronounce it because yeah, I have that slow Texas tongue, but I thought it would be cool to build one out of foam. So without further ado, today we are building a shark tooth melee weapon out of EVA foam. Let's get to building. Oh, no sharks were harmed in the making of this video. So I actually tried using AI to generate a hammerhead shark with traditional Polynesian patterns inside of it, and these monstrosities are what I got. Don't know what kind of fish they're supposed to be, but not really close to what I wanted. So I found the basic shape of what I was going for and drew the outline in Microsoft Paint. Then I switched over to Paint 3D to allow for a little more manipulation of the pattern that I found in a Google search. I copied it and pasted it several times, layering it and cropping bits out to fit the shape that I wanted. I then had to convert the PNG to a SVG so that my laser cutter could read the files. Just kind of goes to show you that you could buy a program to do all of these things, or you could just use a hodgepodge of programs for free to quickly get done what you need, but you just gotta jump around. Then I imported the file into my laser cutter and set the parameters for cutting and engraving EVA foam. I didn't realize a mistake until I had hit the start button. I should have made my cut operation after the engraving so that the foam didn't curl up. It ended up messing the engraving, but not that much. So I'm still going to use this cut. Just maybe pay more attention to the order of operations. It took my laser cutter a little over an hour to burn the details and make two identical hammerhead sharks with Polynesian patterns engraved in them. I will include a picture of my shark in the template in the description below, as well as an SVG file if you have a laser cutter and want to use this image to engrave with. Feel free. So with the shark cut out, I now know how big my club needs to be for the weapon by drawing a pattern around it. These clubs come in all shapes and sizes, but mine will be determined by the drawing that I made. It kind of ended up looking like a boat oar or maybe a very large shark tooth. I traced the shape onto some 48mm EVA foam and carved out the rough outline with a sharp box cutter. Then I beveled the edge on the pieces by cutting out a wedge, then followed up with some refinement on a sander. You could use a rotary tool for this and take a little while, but I actually did most of my shaping outside on my belt sander, and it knocked down on the amount of dust particles floating in the air from the EVA foam. Now with the basic shape I want, I'm going to sand a wood grain pattern onto the surface of the foam. You could always just paint this on or even use real wood for this entire build if you wanted to. Hitting the foam with the corners of a sanding drum etches a nice groove that once painted will give at least some resemblance at a glance of wood grain. You definitely should wear a mask while sanding EVA foam. You don't want to breathe in the particles. Same basic technique as the base shape, but for these to look like shark teeth, I need to carve in some different details. The bottom of the tooth has a dental band and a root that sticks out from the tooth. I carve that bit in first so that I know where the rest of the tooth needs to taper from. I include serrations on the edges. Shark's teeth come in all different shapes and sizes. An ancient megalodon tooth can be over 7 inches tall, and the smallest sharks talking like millimeters, so there's a great variance. There's also a variance in the colors. They vary from white to yellow to gray to black to whatever. I'm not trying to replicate any specific type of shark tooth. I'm just trying to get a vague resemblance that roughly fits the prop I'm making. Initially, I guessed I needed 14 at this size, but I actually only used 13 due to the spacing on the base later. The handle for my club will be a piece of 3/4 inch PVC pipe wrapped with a 4mm foam around the outside of it, so I can carve in more wood grain to match the base. When gluing foam to PVC, I like to use super glue. I feel like it gets a better bond. I burrow out a hole in the bottom of the base and glue in the handle, then trim it to size and wrap the PVC with some foam that I then carve in those details. Eventually, I know that most of this is going to be covered with my twine and suede wrap later. Now I'm going to glue on all my details. I could use contact cement here instead, or even hot glue, but I'm working fast and don't want to have to clean up any glue once it sets up. The actual build from start to finish took me roughly 3 hours to construct and another maybe hour or so of painting. I might have to cut and engrave that shark in wood for a wall decoration. I really like how the pattern turned out on this design. With everything assembled, now I need to make some holes for the cord to go through. On the real world weapon, this would help to further secure the connection of the teeth to the weapon. On my prop, it's surely going to be for decoration purposes, as the super glue bonds that foam to itself pretty good. I'm using a small rotary bit on my rotary tool and just plunging it into the foam. I was surprised with how clean the punch was from my side, but I did have to go in and clean up the backside with a stone bit to kind of smooth over the rough edge. I also had to pay attention to keeping my plunge perpendicular to the foam surface. That taper on the edge of the base makes it real easy to go close on the edge while drilling on my side, and much further inset on the other side if you're not paying attention. To clean up any stringy loose bits, I quickly hit the holes with a small blast of a blowtorch. Two coats of Plasti Dip. I decided that my wood grain was going to have a bit of a reddish undertone to it. I make sure to start my paint job with some burnt sienna and work my way up to lighter shades of brown from there. I built up layers of color differentiation using a dry brushing technique. It's where you wet your bristles down with paint, dab off most of it into a paper towel or on the plate, and then lightly hit the high points across the surface of your piece. It really accents the ridges and carved in lines that we made earlier. After some burnt sienna and burnt umber, I added a little white to the mix and made some strategic stripes of lighter tones in between my grain carvings. I just want to make some variations in the wood to mimic the discoloration and layers of wood that you would see in the real world based on atmospheric conditions and season changes and stuff. I initially go a lot lighter than it needs to be, and once it all dries, I go back over the top with some more burnt sienna watered down to kind of tone down the difference. I made multiple passes and mixed in darker browns, blacks, and even a little yellow here and there to add more depth, especially across the engraving, which doesn't have any wood grain carved into it at all. For the lacing of my teeth, I'm going to use this red suede cording. I wanted a nice contrasting color so that it stood out from the wood and the teeth. For the handle, I wanted to use a rougher cord that would probably be closer to what they actually used on these weapons. I then accented the top and the bottom of my handle wrap with some more of that suede. I weave the red suede in and out of the holes to one side, then another strand goes across the opposite way to give a similar pattern on the front and the back. And we are finished. Here is the end result. Overall, I think it turned out pretty cool. It is definitely a little bit bigger than I expected it to be, but my favorite part was by far sitting in and designing this little hammerhead shark to go on here. Yeah. Maybe we'll try and make one of these yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to watch some random show while you're getting your hair cut. Go to a Google search and do a random weapons look-up-sees and find something utterly epic that you could try and make yourself. A bit. Maybe you'll get some. Yay! And inevitably, they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these. Tell them, much props. Time to either fan myself or chop. It's a weapon. It's been a while since I hit you, so brace yourself. If you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and want to see more builds like this one, please consider joining these awesome people listed here with me over on my Patreon to build a bigger, better, more creative community together.